My dad gave my $175,000 college fund to my brother. Just like that. No warning, no conversation. And when I asked him why, he didn't hesitate. He just looked at me and said, "You'll be fine. Figure it out." That was it. Years of planning, gone in a sentence. I stood there with nothing. No backup. No support. While my brother walked away with everything. And the worst part? No one thought it was wrong. That moment could have broken me. Honestly, it almost did. But instead, it changed me. Because I took those words seriously. I figured it out. And 5 years later, they weren't looking at me the same way anymore. Growing up, things were never exactly equal between me and my brother. No one said it out loud, but it was always there. He got more attention, more support, more second chances. And me? I was expected to handle things on my own. If I succeeded, it was normal. If I struggled, it was my responsibility. I didn't complain. I adapted. I worked harder. Because I believed something simple, that eventually things would balance out. Especially when it came to college. My dad talked about that fund for years. How he had saved for both of us. How we'd both get a fair shot. And I believed him. I built my plans around it. The schools I applied to. The future I imagined. Everything depended on that one promise. So I stayed focused. Did everything right. Kept my expectations realistic. Because I wasn't asking for more. Just what was already supposed to be there. Meanwhile, my brother? He didn't worry about any of it. He knew he had a safety net. He knew things would work out for him. And honestly, so did I. Just in a different way. I thought we were both being prepared for our futures. Just through different paths. Until the day I found out the truth. That the plan I trusted was never really mine. And everything I had built my future on could disappear in a single decision. One that I had no control over. And no warning about. That's when everything changed. I still remember the exact moment he told me. We were sitting at the kitchen table. Nothing dramatic. Just a normal day. And then he said it, like it was nothing. "I used your college fund to help your brother." For a second, I thought I heard it wrong. Because there was no way that made sense. No way that was real. "What do you mean, used it?" I asked. He didn't even hesitate. He needed it more. That was the explanation. Simple. Final. Like that settled everything. Like it didn't erase years of planning. Years of believing I had something to fall back on. I felt my chest tighten. Not just because the money was gone, but because of how easily it was taken. No discussion. No warning. No choice. Just a decision made without me. I looked at my brother, waiting for something. Anything. For him to say it wasn't right. For him to refuse it. To at least acknowledge what it cost me. But he didn't. He just sat there, quiet. Like it was normal. Like it was his. And that silence? It said everything. That's when I realized. This wasn't just about money. It was about value. About who mattered more. And in that moment, it wasn't me. I tried to stay calm. I really did. But I needed to understand. "What am I supposed to do now?" I asked. That's when he said it. The line that stayed with me longer than anything else. "You'll be fine. Figure it out." No emotion. No hesitation. Just expectation. Like struggling was part of my role. Like being left with nothing was normal for me. I nodded slowly. Not because I agreed, but because I realized something important. There was no point arguing. The decision was already made, and nothing I said was going to change it. So I stood up, walked away, and for the first time, I stopped expecting anything from them. Because in that moment, it became clear. I wasn't overlooked. I was replaced. My future had been traded for someone else's opportunity. And everyone in that room was okay with it. That was the part that hurt the most. Not the loss, but the acceptance. The quiet agreement that I would be the one to figure it out. Alone. And as I walked away that day, I realized something I hadn't before. No one was coming to fix this. No one was going to make it fair. If I wanted a future, I was going to have to build it myself. From nothing. That day could have broken me. Honestly, for a while, it almost did. Because everything I had planned was gone. Just like that. No college fund. No backup. No safety net. Just me and those 3 words stuck in my head. Figure it out. So I started with whatever I could. Small jobs. Long hours. Anything that paid. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. And most days, it didn't feel fair. I watched my brother move into college. Tuition covered. Housing sorted. Everything set up for him to succeed. While I was figuring out how to pay rent. How to get through the week. One step at a time. There were nights I barely slept. Days I questioned everything. Wondering if they were right. If maybe I just wasn't the one worth investing in. But every time that thought came up, I pushed it down. Because I didn't have the option to stop. I didn't have the luxury to fail. So I kept going. I learned skills. Picked up trades. Worked with people who started from nothing. And built something real. And slowly, things began to shift. Not all at once. Not in some big, dramatic moment. But little by little. Better opportunities. Better pay. More control. I stopped just surviving. And started building. And the crazy part? The thing I was told to do as a fallback. Learn a trade. Became the foundation of everything. Because while everyone else had a plan handed to them, I had to create mine. From scratch. No shortcuts. No guarantees. Just work. And over time, that work turned into something solid. Something real. Something mine. And for the first time, I wasn't behind. I wasn't catching up. I was moving forward. On my own terms. And that's when I realized, maybe being left with nothing wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the start of something bigger. 5 years later, everything looked different. Not overnight. Not by luck. But piece by piece, I had built something real. What started as small jobs turned into consistent work. That work turned into clients. Those clients turned into opportunities. And eventually, I had my own business. My own place. My own stability. No one handed it to me. No one funded it. It was mine. Every part of it. And then, I got the call. From my dad. Out of nowhere. We hadn't really talked much over the years. Not like before. So hearing his voice again. It felt strange. We should meet, he said. No explanation. Just that. For a moment, I thought about saying no. Because I didn't need anything from him anymore. But something told me to go. Not for him. For closure. So I agreed. When I walked into that place, I noticed it immediately. The energy was different. Quieter. Less certain. My dad didn't look the same. Not weaker. But not as confident either. And my brother? He was there too. Sitting across from me. Avoiding eye contact. That alone told me everything I needed to know. We sat down. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Just silence. The kind that says more than words ever could. Then my dad finally broke it. How have you been? A simple question. But it didn't feel simple. Not after everything. I answered calmly. Good. Busy. And that was the truth. Because I didn't need to explain myself anymore. My life already did that. He nodded slowly. Like he was putting pieces together. Like he was realizing something he hadn't before. Then he glanced at my brother. And that's when it came out. Not directly. Not all at once. But enough. Things hadn't worked out the way they expected. The money? Gone. Opportunities missed. Plans that didn't turn into anything real. And suddenly, the person they invested everything in wasn't the one sitting strong at the table. I didn't say anything right away. I just listened. Because I didn't need to prove anything. The contrast was already there. Clear. Unavoidable. And for the first time, I wasn't the one being questioned. I was the one being looked at. Differently. With a kind of attention I had never received before. Not out of expectation, but realization. And that moment, that quiet shift, was more powerful than any argument could have been. Because it wasn't forced. It was earned. The conversation slowed, then shifted. Because there was only one thing left to say. My dad leaned back slightly, looking at me longer than before. Not with authority. Not with certainty. But with something unfamiliar. Regret. You did good, he finally said. Simple words. But they carried weight. Because they weren't automatic. They weren't expected. They were earned. I didn't respond right away. I just let it sit there. Because for years, I had imagined this moment. What I would say. How I would prove him wrong. But now that it was here, I realized something. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Everything I had built. Already had. I looked at my brother. He still hadn't said much. Still quiet. Still avoiding eye contact. But this time, it wasn't confidence. It was something else. Discomfort. Maybe even regret. And for the first time, the roles had reversed. Not in a loud way. Not in a dramatic way. But clearly, I wasn't the one struggling anymore. I wasn't the one being compared. I was the one who figured it out. Exactly like they told me to. But not in the way they expected. My dad spoke again. Slower this time. More careful. Maybe I didn't handle things the right way. That was as close to an apology as he had ever come. And honestly, it was enough. Not because it fixed the past, but because it acknowledged it. I nodded slightly. Not to agree, but to accept. Because I wasn't there to argue. I wasn't there to reopen anything. I was there to close it. On my terms. And in that moment, I realized something important. The power had shifted. Not because I took it, but because I built it. Piece by piece. From nothing. And now, no one could take that away from me. Not decisions. Not money. Not expectations. Because everything I had, I created myself. And that was worth more than $175,000 ever could have been. I walked out of that meeting lighter than I expected. Not because everything was fixed. Not because the past suddenly made sense. But because I finally let it go. For years, I carried that moment with me. The anger, the confusion, the feeling of being overlooked. But standing there now, I realized something had changed. It didn't define me anymore, because I had built something stronger than what I lost. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need that money. And I definitely didn't need to prove anything. I had already done that. In the quiet moments, in the hard days, in every step forward when no one was watching. And as I stepped outside, I took a deep breath. Because for the first time, it felt like everything was exactly where it needed to be. Not perfect, but real. Because sometimes, the best thing that can happen to you is being left with nothing. Because that's when you find out what you're actually capable of building. And once you build it, no one can ever take it away from you.